friends, welcome to my channel 5 Minutes History. Today I bring you the incredible story of the Six-Day War, the war that changed the political map of the Middle East. Six-Day War, also called the June War or the Third Arab-Israeli War, was fought between Israel and a coalition of Arab states, primarily Egypt, Syria and Jordan, from 5th to 10 June 1967. The relations between the Jewish state of Israel and its Muslim Arab neighbors were never friendly. Right from the day of the formation of Israel, there were constant political and military tensions between them. The two sides fought war in 1948 and 1956 following disputes surrounding the formation of Israel. An era of relative calm prevailed in the Middle East during the late 1950s and early 1960s, but the political situation continued to rest on a knife edge. Arab leaders were aggrieved by their military losses and the hundreds and thousands of Palestinian refugees created by Israel's victories in these wars. Israelis meanwhile continued to believe that they faced an existential threat from the Arab nations. By the mid-1960s, Syrian-backed Palestinian guerrillas had begun staging attacks across the Israeli border, provoking reprisal raids from the Israel Defense Forces. In April 1967, the skirmishes worsened after Israel and Syria fought a ferocious air and artillery engagement in which 6 Syrian fighter jets were destroyed. During this time, Soviet Union's intelligence report that Israel was planning a full-scale invasion of Egypt further vitiated the atmosphere. The information was inaccurate, but it nevertheless stirred Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser into action. He immediately ordered Egyptian forces to advance into the Sinai Peninsula, closer to the border with Israel. He banned Israeli shipping from the Straits of Tiran, the sea passage connecting the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, sealed a defense pact with King Hussein of Jordan, and openly declared on 26 May 1967 that he intended to destroy Israel. As the situation in the Middle East deteriorated, American President Lyndon B. Johnson cautioned both sides against firing the first shot and attempted to garner support for an international maritime operation to reopen the Straits of Tiran. But before anything could have materialized, Israeli leaders made up their minds to counter the Arab military buildup by launching a preemptive strike, as for them it was the question of their existence. On 5th June 1967, the Israel Defense Forces initiated Operation Focus, a coordinated aerial attack on Egypt, and led to the beginning of the Third Arab-Israeli War or the Six-Day War. That morning, some 200 Israeli aircraft took off from Israel, crossed over the Mediterranean, and converged on Egypt from the north. The Egyptians were completely caught by surprise. Israeli Air Force assaulted 18 different airfields and destroyed 90% of the Egyptian Air Force on the ground. Israel then expanded the range of its attack and decimated the air forces of Jordan, Syria and Iraq. With the Arab air forces essentially taken out of the fight at the very outset, the Israelis possessed complete air superiority. Israeli army then advanced on the Egyptian forces which had massed along the border with the Sinai. Israelis fought against 7 Egyptian brigades supported by approximately 1,000 tanks. Intense fighting continued, and by the morning of 6th June, Israeli troops destroyed Egyptian defenses and advanced far into Egyptian positions. As their troops were getting battered, Egyptian commanders gave orders to retreat from the Sinai Peninsula and cross the Suez Canal. As such, within 48 hours of Israeli troops beginning the campaign, they reached the Suez Canal and effectively controlled the entire Sinai Peninsula. A second front in the Six-Day War opened on 5th June when King Hussein of Jordan, honoring his pact with Egypt, ordered his forces to attack Israeli positions in Jerusalem. Israel responded with a devastating counterattack on Jordanian-controlled East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Fighting continued for the next 2 days, and on the morning of 7th June 1967, Israeli troops entered the old city of Jerusalem, which had been under the Arab control since 1948. The ancient area was secured and the Israeli flag was raised over Temple Mount. The holiest site in Judaism, the Western Wall, was in Israel's possession, and Israeli troops celebrated by praying at the wall. Israeli forces took a number of other towns and villages, including Bethlehem, Jericho, and Ramallah. The last phase of the fighting took place along Israel's northeastern border with Syria, where Israel decimated Syrian army and captured the Golan Heights. On 10th June 1967, a United Nations brokered ceasefire took effect, and the Six-Day War came to an abrupt end. It was later estimated that some 20,000 Arabs and 800 Israelis had died in just 132 hours of fighting. The Six-Day War had momentous geopolitical consequences in the Middle East. In Israel, the national mood was jubilant. Though outnumbered, the Israelis inflicted heavy casualties on its Arab enemies. In less than a week, the young nation had captured the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria, and almost tripled in size. By claiming the West Bank and Gaza Strip, Israel also absorbed over 1 million Palestinian Arabs. Several hundred thousand Palestinians later fled Israeli rule, worsening a refugee crisis that had begun during the First Arab-Israeli War in 1948. The leaders of the Arab states were left shocked and ashamed by the severity of their defeat. Egyptian President Nasser even resigned in disgrace, but was later reinstated following a series of protests across Egypt. Israeli victory in the Six-Day War further fanned the flames of Arab-Israeli conflict and culminated in the Fourth Arab-Israeli War, or Yom Kippur War, in 1973.